All right, there we go. All set up. Thanks for joining me for the live stream today. I'm getting ready for Genghis Khan, which is happening tomorrow. So I'm going to be doing a lot of mini comic prep work. So that's like trimming off any excess and then folding them up and putting them in my little mini comic box. So that's going to be a good chunk of the live stream for today. I may or may not be able to do some work on the Legend of Jamie Roberts in between. So here's what I'm thinking. That I work on the mini comic stuff in like 15-minute bursts and then answer any questions that you may have. Yes. There's a cat at my feet. Hello, Scarlett. And then I'll answer your questions for a little while and then work on the Legend of Jamie Roberts for about 15 minutes and answer any questions that you may have for a little bit, and then work on mini comics, rinse, repeat for at least an hour, maybe. We'll see how long this live stream goes. Megan. Talking to the cat again. I really need to brush you. Yes. Okay, that said, I am going to adjust the camera angle a little bit so that you can see the mini comics. Trying to think of the best angle to do here. So, excuse me a moment while I move stuff around. Put the phone there. I have a bunch of mugs of art supplies that I keep next to the computer. It's where I keep my pens, pencils, brush pens, stuff like that. Scissors. Pretty much everything is kept in mugs. Mostly because either the mugs are no longer drinkable and yeah. Hi, Jessica. Good to see you again. Yeah, you haven't seen the kitty yet, but Scarlett was indeed walking around. I think. Whoa. Okay. You know what? I'm gonna. Here we go. Yeah, there's still plenty of battery power for the computer, at least. Okay. Okay, I'm going to unplug the tablet and because I don't need the tablet yet, I'm going to put the cord in this drawer here. Move the tablet up here. Okay. Oh my God, it's dusty as heck back there. Oh my God. Oh, that's okay. That's not going to do. Okay. All right. Oh, yes. Hold on. Yes, Miss Scarlett. You're going to be internet famous. Uh-huh. It's not torture if she's not running away. She's just very, very vocal. That's all. Oh, Grump. She's like the equivalent of the teenage girl that's like, no. All right. Hold on a sec. I got to get a wipe because, oh my God, behind the laptop is just too gross. Might as well take care of this now. Be glad you're not seeing the absolute dust mites that exist behind this laptop setup. You don't need to see it. Oh, my lands. Okay, good. That got, whoa, most of it. Don't mind me, almost knocking everything over. Okay. Woo! That was close. Okay. All right. All right, now I'll take this back into the kitchen here in a minute. Here's my mug of pencils, and that includes watercolor pencils, which are really nice. I got a lot of these supplies through Art Snacks back when I had a subscription with them. Yep, Art Snacks logo. This is actually a chalkboard mug. I just never drew on it with chalk. I use it more to decorate with stickers. I should do that more often, actually. I have like a crap ton of stickers that need a home. My BGSU Falcons mug. Go Falcons, my alma mater. I don't drink out of this one because it got a really nasty chip. So now it's just home to most of my bullet journal, line pens, fine liner pens, ballpoint pens, brush pens, and the occasional Sharpie if it has a sharp enough tip. Respect the stash. Yes, this is the mug that the mug on the cover of Johnson & Sir is based on, and the handle is a mustache. It's charming as heck, and I love it. And I drank out of this for the longest time, but now the inside of it is the lacquer has lost a lot of its worth. So now it's just the home for all of my brush pens, fine liner pens, a couple of double-ended brush pens. One end is a brush pen. The other end is a fine tip, like this one. These actually come in really handy for caricature gigs, but the thing is that these brush pens, especially the Tombow brush pens, they tend to die out after like 4 hours of drawing caricatures. So I don't know if I would recommend them for like if you work at an amusement park and are doing 8 to 10 hour shifts. I wouldn't recommend that. There's actually a specific kind of brush pen that we used at Commons Art Shops when we did caricatures. It's just, I have a hard time finding them outside of Amazon. It's kind of the problem with them. I'll be right back. Okay. Pulling the bucket. I have a bucket that I have that's just full of paper waste. I really need to take it to the recycle bin soon. All right. Now, this first batch of mini comics, I'm actually trimming these for Wasted Ink Zine Distro out in Phoenix, Arizona. They asked me to send them like 10 copies of Lazy Diana #1 and 10 copies of Mr. Dino and Friends, because those are the 2 best sellers at their store at the moment. So I'm trimming up these ones before I get to the actual mini comic restocks for conventions. Probably not gonna fold the ones for Wasted Ink today. I'll save that for probably sometime next week. I don't know. It depends on how many mini comics I can get done during this live stream. I'm just gonna finish trimming these up because there's only like, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's only like 6 individual sheets left to trim for the Wasted Ink pile. So I'm going to take care of that first before I get to anything else. I came across this folding technique for these mini comics from a book that I picked up at the library ages ago called What You Mean? What's a Zine? And it talks about how to get into the zine scene, how to fold zines in at least 7 different ways, how to get in touch with distros, what distros to get in touch with. However, this book is quite old, so a lot of the zine distros that are listed in the back of the book are no longer in business. So that's a bit of a bummer. That said, there's actually a good Tumblr blog called callsforsubmissions.tumblr.com that they run calls for submissions by individual zines. And they're a really good resource if you want to get into the zine scene and you don't know who to submit to, or you don't know any kind of distros. Sometimes just good old Google can help a lot too. I found out about Wasted Ink Zine Distro, I think because I did a Google search for zine sellers and independent bookstores in the Phoenix, Arizona area. And Wasted Ink was one of the first ones that popped up. I found out about Neither Nor Zine Distro because when I went to Space, Small Press Alternative Comics Expo in Columbus, one of the visiting artists name dropped them in a zine that they had. So I looked them up, and then I found out that they were looking for titles as well. So I sent my stuff to them. And now you can find some of my mini comics, including Mr. Dino and Friends, at Neither Nor Zine Bistro in Kansas City, Missouri, I think it is. I know there's 2 different Kansas cities. And obviously I have stuff at Quimby's. I feel like every zinester worth their salt should have at least one title at Quimby's in Chicago, because Quimby's has been in the game for, I think, the longest amount of time, and they run a smooth ship. Because of the stores that I sell stuff on consignment with, Quimby's and surprisingly New Dimension Comics are the ones that earn me the most money. But they're like ranked number 2 and 3. The number 1 ranking store that I get a lot of consignment earnings from is a little business over in Wheeling, which is local to me. A little business called Cat's Paw Art Studios. And part of the reason that my stuff sells so well there is because Wheeling in general is really keen on supporting local people. I feel like that should be a thing like everywhere. Like everywhere wants to support local people, but I'm not entirely sure how true that is. Yeah, I'm not telling you exactly where my house is, but I will say that the closest metropolitan area to me, besides Wheeling, West Virginia, is Pittsburgh. The area that I live in right now is actually considered part of the greater Pittsburgh area. What I'm doing right now is I'm just trimming off, last sheet for the wasted ink pile. What I'm doing is I'm just trimming off the excess white, because whenever I print these from my home printer, there's always a little like white border around the individual sheets. So I'm just trimming that off before I begin to fold these into an actual zine shape. There's something soothing about trimming on a mat with an X-Acto knife. This is the mat that I'm using. I've had this for years, so there's just marks everywhere. X-Acto blade and a metal ruler with cork on the other side of it. Whenever I trim, I actually lay it down so that it's metal side flush against the actual paper, and the cork facing upwards. That way you get a more precise edge. All right, the wasted ink pile is now trimmed. I'm going to set this aside because I'll fold these another day. Well, now I just need to figure out where on this shelf I'm going to put these. I need to reorganize this really, really badly. There for now, I guess. Oh. I'll go ahead and show this off too while it was sitting on top of the pile. This here is art that I made for the cover of Dragons, a sketchbook, which had a successful Kickstarter campaign. I just finished formatting the PDF for it, and I sent it off to the printer already. Now I'm just waiting for the printer to come back to me and say, here's the proof. What do you think? All right. Now I am working on the pile of mini comics for restocking before Genghis Khan. Oh, I don't need the box yet. I just need to trim the white edges off first. Then I will fold these up and put them away in a box. Okay, this particular mini comic is one of those ones that because I usually trim the short edges off first. But this one I have to trim the long edges off first, fold it hamburger style, and then trim the short sides off. Because I did not mark an edge line on one side of it like a doof. Okay. Okay. I'll go ahead and highlight this comment here. That's nice. I'm excited to get the book. Oh, I'm excited to share the book. Oh my gosh. It took me a little while to compile all the names for the thank you section, but they are now compiled. I'm hoping that I can be able to ship out Dragons, a sketchbook, to Kickstarter backers by, the objective is to get them in the mail by December 18th-ish. That's the goal. I don't know how soon I can accomplish this goal. It just depends on how quickly the comic printer gets them printed. You should be able to get these comics, these particular sketchbooks done in time, because we're not at the height of convention season at the moment. So I don't imagine that he would be backed up on orders or anything like that. Bringing that banner back up. Okay. Yeah, if you're wondering why I'm taking a second to highlight comments, it's because there's a bit of a lag between the actual streaming of me talking and when the comments come in. There's a bit of a lag there. That's okay. It works. It's supposed to work to my benefit. That's why the delay is there. This zine that I'm trimming up right now is actually a fanzine that I did a little while back in 2017. It's called Suit Up, a Dragon Ball zine. Basically, I just drew the highlighted characters of Dragon Ball Z in suits, because I just thought to myself, what if these characters, but in suits? Because I am a massive dork for this show. Like, I appreciate it a lot more as an adult now, because when I was a kid, I thought it was a little silly that everybody was taking everything so seriously. But now as an adult, like, after having read Dragon Ball, everything makes more sense in Dragon Ball Z if you read Dragon Ball first. Baby Bree has come into the room. I don't know if you'll be able to see her at that particular camera angle that I have yet right now. But if she wants picked up, she'll let me know. Neither of my cats rub against legs or headbutt your leg, but Bree does a thing where if you give her pettins and you stop and you begin to walk away and she wants you to keep petting her, she will turn around and she will bat at your ankles. The first time without claws. If she's really annoyed with you, then she'll get the claws out. But anyway, back to the zine. I mostly just drew this zine for the funsies. But because these are not characters that I created, the proceeds of the sales of this zine go towards two different nonprofits, Fight for the Future and the Electronic Frontier Foundation. Because both of them deal with issues of free expression online, and both of them were very involved and still are very involved in the fight for net neutrality, which is a very important issue to me, considering that most of my business is online. So I am more than happy to have all of the proceeds of the sales of Suit Up go to both of those groups. That's one thing I prefer in fanzines, is that sales of those zines be given, at least have 50% of the profits go towards a charitable organization. Like, I feel that it's okay to keep half of the proceeds, if only because you need the money to print up the books somehow. So like any group that's running a fanzine and they're like 50% of the proceeds go towards this charitable organization and the other half goes towards printing up new books so that we can keep raising money for this organization, I'm totally okay with that. That's the other thing about the Tumblr blog, calls for submissions.tumblr.com. They will also run the occasional fanzine that's looking for a submission, and they'll tell you whether the zine is for a charitable organization, and a lot of the times which charitable organization they are supporting. That's really awesome. I love everything EFF does. I do too. That's why I want to support them. So I'm really glad that I can help support them with sales of Suit Up, a fanzine. This is one of those zines that's not listed on my online store yet. Working on it. Give me some time after Genghis Khan to list this zine on my website. I really need to catch up on listing all of my stuff on my website. I'm really bad about that at the moment. I want to say that only half of my stock that I take with me to conventions is listed at shop.kelseydcrawford.com. But I'm getting there, one product at a time. I did add quite a few mini prints to the store recently, and that helped a lot. I'll go ahead and throw this out there. If you backed Dragons a Sketchbook and you buy something from shop.kelseydcrawford.com, I'll ship it with your Kickstarter order. That way, that's just all put together. I had one Kickstarter backer already buy quite a few mini prints off of me, mostly through my email newsletter, which I have an email newsletter. They got my email newsletter. They saw that I had new mini prints for sale, and they were like, yes, I will buy this. Please ship these with my Kickstarter order. And I was like, I can do that. I am happy to do that. Like, are you kidding? It saves on shipping. And also, it gets you more stuff in your Kickstarter rewards. I love doing that sort of thing. I like to spoil my backers. I also like to spoil my Patreon patrons, which reminds me, I need to make a post on Patreon asking for people's shipping addresses if I don't have them yet already, because I want to send stuff in the mail to my Patreon patrons. I'm not telling you what your Christmas present is yet. I have something in mind, but I'm not telling you what it is yet. That said, I am looking for other alternatives for funding aside from Patreon. I love Patreon. I love what it has done for my work. It's helped me be able to afford groceries. However, I have noticed that there are a bunch of people who are passive aggressively or aggressively leaving the platform because of stuff that the CEO and the people who run Patreon have done, which some of it is alt-right dipshit like complaints, so I'm not going to pay too much attention to that. But there was one Patreon patron that I lost who said that he didn't want to support Patreon as a system anymore. And so he would support artists through other means, but he was done with Patreon as a system, which, like, on the one hand, I can get it. On the other hand, it's like, great, thanks for taking away my gas money for the month. That helps a lot. Sticking it to the man. I feel like there is a way to protest Patreon as a system without also giving the shaft to the artists who use Patreon. But that's me. I admit that that is entirely a me stipulation. Right now, I am trimming the mini comic, Small Validations. I made this zine because I realized one day that I didn't have any kind of physical merchandise for validation. And I really needed to fix that because of the properties that I work on, validation has the largest audience. at least the largest online readership, I should say. Or it did. I'm not sure what the readership looks like now because we've been on hiatus for a while. I'm sorry. You can blame me for that because, well, you can blame Christian and I for that because both of our, well, her day job and one of my side gigs has been, they've both been monopolizing our time, especially during the time period in which we had to declare a hiatus. Now we've gotten to a point where those gigs are not monopolizing our time, but building back up that workflow has been a bit of a challenge. So we're still working on validation. We're still writing and drawing it. It's just that Patreon patrons who support Chris on her Patreon page get to see the strips as they get done, because we've been working on it relatively infrequently. We're getting there, gosh dang it. Trying to build back up that workflow. But yes, I made small validations because I realized I didn't have any physical merchandise for validation at my table, but a lot of people would recognize me if they saw validation on the table. And as it turns out, when I did put small validations in my setup, people recognized it and they started geeking out with me about it. And then they would be like, I didn't know you did other works. And I would be like, yes, these are all of my other comic projects. So it helps in that regard. Also, small validations is one of those zines that I feel like there needs to be more of in the world, because I made small validations deliberately as like a, you can open it to any random page in the zine and you can get a small affirmation. I like seeing little affirmations in things, but like in pocket form, not necessarily like an entire book full of affirmations. I would rather see like something that can fit inside of your pocket. That way, if you're feeling bummed, you can just pull it out, open it to a random page, and boom, affirmation. And that's what small validations is for. That's what I designed it to do. And I think it's worked out so far. A lot of the people who have bought it have been using it for that purpose. And they gift it to college students, even if they don't read validation, because, hey, pocket affirmations and pocket validations. I already printed up my restocks for my mini prints, and I still have like a crap ton of my regular books. By regular, I mean like the comic books, like The Case of the Wendigo, Johnson and Sir, Charlie and Clow, The Legend of Jamie Roberts #1. Like, I have a butt ton of copies of those books, so I don't have to rush to get those printed. I will not be able to have Dragons of Sketchbook with me at Genghis Con tomorrow. I know, I'm a little heartbroken about it, but the timing just didn't work out super duper well in that regard. But that's fine, because there's still stuff that I can take with me to Genghis Con tomorrow. Not just mini comics, not just mini prints. Like, not all of the baby dragon paintings that I made sold through the Kickstarter campaign. So I'm going to take the ones that did not sell in the Kickstarter campaign, and I will take them with me to Genghis Con to see if see if anybody would want to adopt a baby dragon painting. My copy of Small Validations lives on my wife's desk. That is great. I feel like a desk is a great place to keep them, if only because whenever you're working on a project or something and you're feeling really discouraged, it's a good way to get yourself back into working order or back into the motivation to be like, yes, I can do this. There we go. And now I am trimming up copies of Lazy Diana #2, which I want to make Lazy Diana into a podcast, which is part of the reason why Lazy Diana has capped at 4 issues. Because I want to transition from making zines of Lazy Diana to making podcasts of Lazy Diana, but not like full-length, hour-long podcasts. I want to do something like the podcast Positivitini. I love Positivitini. They are a podcast of messages of hope, support, and inspiration in 10 minutes or less. And I love the concept of a podcast episode lasting 10 minutes or less. And I want to keep doing that. Well, I want to get my toes involved in that. So I think Lazy Diana would be a good format for that sort of thing. I'm still going to keep Lazy Diana numbers 1 through 4 in print for a while, at least until I feel like they don't sell much anymore. Lazy Diana is one of those zines that it's not a hot seller at conventions, but they are among my best-selling titles in consignments, which is why I keep printing them. So that's something to keep in mind if you want to make stuff and you want to try to sell it. If it's not doing super well in one market, try it in a different one. Because Lazy Diana was one of those zines that I made that it depends on the convention too. Because some conventions, Lazy Diana would do really well because it's, as I like to pitch it, it's paganism for lazy people. Or it's like paganism and magic for lazy people. That's why it's called Lazy Diana. Not every convention or festival or venue is okay with that kind of a pitch. That's part of the reason why I have not tried to go to a ton of craft shows in my area, because those are run by churches, especially like Methodist and Presbyterian and Catholic ones. And I don't think they would take to my selling Lazy Diana super duper well. They also probably would take issue with the fact that I have Witches, a sketchbook, and especially with my sketchbook, Gods and Spirits. So if somehow, some way, I did get a table at like a craft show hosted by a church, I would probably not take those. But then again, it depends. Because in my experience, last year and the year before, so 2017 and 2018, something I discovered was the need for LGBT content in some parts of West Virginia, especially around Parkersburg. I was booked to have my table set up at a couple of shows down in Parkersburg. And then I found out a couple of months before the shows were slated to happen that Parkersburg was trying to pass an anti-discrimination measure to protect LGBTQ citizens, and the measure failed. And I was concerned about going there and selling my stuff because at the time I had at least 3 pieces that had rainbows on them and were deliberately that way because they were art pieces raising funding for the Zebra Coalition, which is an LGBTQ advocacy group down in Florida. What the Zebra Coalition does is they help runaway youth, specifically runaway LGBTQ youth. I was nervous about going to Parkersburg because I had those art pieces with me, but I decided to go to Parkersburg to sell my stuff anyway, and to have those things on the table, whether I saw MAGA hats or not. I decided to sell my stuff there. And it turned out that there were a shit ton of teenagers at those shows that would flock around my table because I was the only vendor that had rainbow stuff there. And they would ask about it in quiet tones. Like, even at like West Virginia Pop Culture Con in Morgantown, which is probably the most liberal dot in West Virginia, there were still teenagers like kind of leaning in real close to me and being like, do you have anything for like lesbian, gay, or transgender kids? And I would be like, do I? And yes, I do. The answer is yes. Oh, I see a new comment. The Lazy Diana podcast would be awesome. Yes. Oh my gosh. I want to make it happen. I have scripts written for, let me check my bullet journal. Because I was keeping track of production of the Lazy Diana podcast in my bullet journal. I have scripts for like 13 episodes. And at least the first 5 of them have been edited, and I've recorded the first episode. Now it's just a matter of actually like recording more of them and then updating them on a more consistent basis. My initial goal was to make Lazy Diana happen and have it update like twice or even 3 times a week. Not entirely sure if I can pull off that kind of an update schedule, even with 10-minute episodes. Mostly because of all of the side gigs and hustles that I have going on right now. So it may just be a once a week for 10 minutes Lazy Diana episode. I don't know. We'll see. I also need to find a place to host the Lazy Diana podcast. I'm not entirely keen on setting up an entire website just for the Lazy Diana podcast. I was thinking about using an app called Castbox. Castbox was is still how I listen to a bunch of podcasts. It's how I'm able to catch up on Positivitini, My Brother and Me, the occasional episode of The Dollop, which is a great podcast, and a few other ones. Like, there's quite a few podcasts that I listen to on Castbox. That said, I'm not sure that I want Lazy Diana to be a Castbox exclusive. There are some podcasts that are Castbox exclusive, and I'm not sure how I feel about those. All right. Oh, scissors. I need scissors. Yoink. Because I'm now at the stage where all of the comic restocks, or the mini comic restocks for conventions, has the excess white trimmed off. So now I'm at the point where I can fold them and make them into actual little books. Some of these are going to need to get stapled though, and I don't want to staple them on this drafting table because this drafting table is made of glass, and also I don't know how much weight this thing can support realistically. I don't want to break it. I usually have a little circular end table in my living room that I staple the zines and mini comics on because it can support the weight. So I may just have to do that. Like, you may see me duck on and off camera for the next few minutes as I get those things stapled together. I use this long arm stapler. I got this at Staples. I was so happy that Staples actually carried this thing because I was afraid I would have to order it on Amazon or someplace. But no, Staples has these. And I'm very happy that they do because this has made stapling Lazy Diana and Suit Up and a couple of other zines so much easier. I also have a box full of staples that I've had this thing for at least 2 years and I have not run out of staples yet. It's amazing and I love it. Bear with me, I'm just moving stuff around to get this ready. Okay. Before I get to trimming these, I'm actually going to slice up an apple and get some apple and peanut butter because I need a snack. I will be right back, y'all. I made a mess in the kitchen. Oh no. Okay, I got it. So I'm going to be that weirdo that has the entire jar of peanut butter just right there. You know what? I'm going to move this back so that you can see this a bit better. Okay. I also took a second to stir my hamburger soup that I have cooking in the other room. I'm big batch cooking a big old pot of hamburger soup because I need something for dinner and I also need something for leftovers whenever I work at the local gas station later this week. I like to cook with the slow cooker a lot. Gets me big old batches of food without a ton of effort. And then I have leftovers that I can pack as lunches for my packed lunch. And yes, I am one of those people that packs my lunch. I don't really like spend money on eating out at like fast food joints or restaurants unless I'm at a Comic-Con. And even then, I find ways to sneak lunches and snacks into the venue. Like, there are some conventions that are like, no outside food or drinks, but like, I've never had anybody pull me aside because I brought a lunchbox in with me. So I'm gonna just keep doing it. Pro tip though, if you are going to be packing lunches, as a vendor, I would recommend that you pack things like fruits and veggies and pepperoni rolls, things that are not going to spoil super well if you leave them in a lunchbox. Actually, I had a friend at Small Press Expo who packed her lunch, and she had a little snack box. The snack box included shreds of seaweed dried into like a chip form. They were actually pretty good. Very salty. Apples and peanut butter make a good packed lunch kind of a thing. If you are a vendor at a convention and you need some snacks, apples and peanut butter are a good option. Raisins, if you can tolerate raisins, which I can, I like raisins, they make a good snack. Sometimes the fruit gummies, like fruit flavored gummy snacks, make a good choice if you want to satiate your inner 12-year-old, which I sometimes do. Pepperoni rolls, though, are super duper easy to do. What I like to do to bake pepperoni rolls is I will take the crescent rolls, I will lay them out flat, and then I'll just roll up slices of pepperoni and like little shreds of mozzarella cheese, and then I'll roll them up into the crescent roll shape, and then I'll bake them as usual. The can on the crescent rolls will suggest baking them for 12 to 14 minutes. Depending on what color pan that you use, try to go towards like the later end of that, if only because the pepperoni roll, the pepperoni inside the roll will need to be baked as well. Pro tip from me to you. Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches also are really good. If you slice up apples and you put them in the middle of your PB&J sandwich, oh, it's so good. Also nuts. Nuts make good filler for PB&J sandwiches. So like if the idea of eating a PB&J sandwich is like, oh, why? It's so basic. There you go. Get some filler in there. It will do you so much good. All right, now I'm folding the Lazy Dianas, and they take a different folding process, which you should be able to see if I maybe move the box. Here we go. That'll work. The Lazy Dianas are actually folded in a different way than most of my mini comics, because Lazy Diana is a quarter page. Trying to get the angle right. Okay, they're a quarter page, not an eighth of a page. But there you go. There's the size differences. Yeah. Here's rubber duck. Okay. And yes, I have a mini comic called Rubber Duck, The Reckoning. Do I have that listed on my online store? I have to check. Again, there's a lot of stuff that's not listed on my online store. I'm working on it, yo. Don't judge me. An issue that I have with the Black History Sketchbook, here, an issue that I have with this is that whenever I'm folding up the pages, I sometimes forget like which characters are supposed to go on what pages when I fold them up. So sometimes I'll just fold them up and each book is a bit different. But that's okay, as long as the intent comes across. I need to start packing breakfast and lunch for work. I keep buying stuff from a little market there. I mostly pack my lunches because I am an extreme budgeter. I will admit that. I admit that I budget myself to the extreme. Hold on one sec, got a staple. Okay. Because I practice something called ZeroSum Budgeting, which, if you're not too familiar with it, there's a couple of different ways to approach it. But the way that I approach ZeroSum Budgeting is you take your payday, you give every dollar of that payday a job, and your objective is to spend that money and not have any left over. And sometimes the job of that money is just to go to savings and sit in the savings account. However, ZeroSum Budgeting is how I was able to pay off $3,000 of credit card debt in 6 months, and it has helped me pay off 3 student loans in the last 6 months. So I am a very extreme budgeter. Even with all of that, I'm still able to afford paying the utilities for the house that I live in right now. I'm still able to afford groceries and my phone bill. The utilities include the internet, so I'm able to cover the cost of the internet. Like, I'm able to cover all of the expenses that I have with this zero-sum budgeting technique, but it is not for everybody. I will admit that now, because zero-sum budgeting is, like I said, it's very extreme. It's one of those kinds of budgets where you deliberately don't have money left over at the end. Or if you do have money left over at the end, you put it towards an objective. For me, that objective for the last year was paying off my student loans at a really fast clip because I don't like being in debt. For the next few months moving forward, though, my objective is going to be saving up money so that I can move. Because I will be moving in April or May of 2020. And I want to make sure that my emergency fund is up to snuff and that I have what I like to call the freelance fund set aside. Because when I move, I want to be able to freelance full-time for a month without the need for a part-time or full-time job outside of freelancing. and I want to try that for a month. But I want to build up what I call the freelance fund, which the freelance fund is it's going to function as my emergency fund during that month that I am freelancing. And it's going to function like that so that if for some reason I'm not able to cover all of my expenses during that month of freelancing, then there's a little savings account that I can dip into if that month of freelancing did not work out super well. I'm hoping that I can save up money for this freelance fund and then just not touch it during that first month that I'm freelancing full time. Because right now I am, how do I phrase this? Because right now I'm technically freelancing full time, but I still have a part-time job at my local gas station. The majority of the funds from that job are going towards paying off the student loans. A chunk of them are being used to help pay for utilities because Patreon can't cover everything. Patreon can cover a lot of things, but it cannot cover everything. And freelancing in general can cover a lot of things Patreon can't, but it cannot cover everything. Freelancing for me includes selling at comic conventions, working on validation, because I am paid to work on validation out of Chris's pocket, which is part of why Chris has a separate Patreon page, is so that she can get the funding that she needs to pay me for working on the comic, but also give herself a writing stipend. That way she's not just, spending money. She's not losing money because, she's investing in me, but she's running the Patreon page so that she can get a kind of a writing stipend and not just spend all of the money that is coming in on paying me. But my freelance basket of where I get my funding covers comic conventions and sales that I make at comic conventions. It covers client work that I do for some clients, which I do have a fair number of clients. It covers working on validation, and that was my dryer, ignore it. And freelancing for me also includes the earnings that I get through Patreon. Freelancing can also cover the occasional odd gig that I get, like drawing caricatures at a party. I actually drew caricatures for one company for 2 years in a row for their Christmas party. I would go to their Christmas party, I would draw caricatures for them, and they would pay me at the end. The party only lasted maybe like 2.5 hours, but they paid me my rate that I charge when I do caricatures at a party, which is nice. I also count running workshops, teaching kids how to make these kinds of mini comics, because I will run workshops to show kids how to make these, and I do charge for those depending on who's running it. If it's the Girl Scouts, if there's like a Girl Scout troop that wants me to teach the kids how to make mini comics, then I will charge a particular rate for that. If it's a nonprofit like the YWCA that's looking for some summer programming for their kids, I do not charge for that, but I will bring my mini comic box along with me so that if there are kids who want to buy mini comics from me, that they can. They get one free one, and any others that they want extra of that costs them extra. That's typically how I do it. I wish you luck. It can be scary to move and change everything. We moved from Georgia to Oregon for a job. That was terrifying. That's a transition right there. Oh my God. I bet that was a huge difference between Georgia and Oregon because just culturally, they're two very different states. And also weather-wise, very different states. Like, I get the impression that Georgia does not get a lot of rain and Oregon does. So that must have been difficult. But yeah, I can get that because I moved back in 2013. I moved from Ohio to Arizona. I moved from this little dinky town to Phoenix because I have family that live out in Phoenix, and I wanted to stay with them until I got enough gigs to strike it out on my own, which didn't happen. I will be upfront about that and say that didn't happen. Turns out, Phoenix, Arizona, not a great place to be if you're an aspiring comic artist or freelance illustrator. There is an art scene in Phoenix, but it's all fine art gallery work. Like, I'm talking like canvases the size of this China hutch over here, like stuff like that. Which is fine. I'm not discounting that. It's just not what I do. So I ended up moving out of Phoenix because it really wasn't working out. And I really did not want to work a full-time or even part-time job doing anything else besides making art. So I moved back to Ohio, to this little dinky town. And weirdly, there was a lot more to do around here, like freelancing wise, than there was in Phoenix, which is odd to say, considering that I'm in the outer edges of Pittsburgh, which is not an artsy town, but oddly, Pittsburgh is very proud of their comics scene. To a degree. The Toonseum that was in Pittsburgh has been shut down. I don't know the full story of what's going on there, but the Toonseum was a thing in Pittsburgh, but now it is not a thing at the moment. It's a pop-up museum right now. It used to have a physical location. It does not anymore. But there's a fair number of artists, especially comic artists, who are based in the Pittsburgh area and the surrounding area, which is odd. But also kind of not odd, because as it turns out, the surrounding area around Pittsburgh is boring as fuck. So you have to draw comics to keep yourself entertained. It's also why a lot of cartoonists are based in Ohio. Because, again, Ohio, aside from the major metropolitan areas like Columbus, Ohio is boring as fuck. So you have to entertain yourself. But freelancing full-time can be scary. Like, it didn't work out super duper well out in the Phoenix area. It's working out better kind of around here, but freelancing full-time in and around here can cover just about everything except paying off the student loans, which is why I have a part-time gig working at my local gas station. The majority of the funding that I get from that job goes towards paying off the student loans. Oh, I started doing DoorDash within the last couple of months. I count that as part of my freelancing bundle. If it sounds like a lot, that's because it is. Freelancing is a lot of things. However, I was talking with my older sister about this because she is also a freelancer, or at least she started freelancing. The weird thing is she called me up the other day and she was like, do you have any pro tips? You've been doing this longer than I have. And I'm like, what? So yeah, I was able to give her some pro tips, but I feel like my older sister has the better mentality of freelancing than I do. So I look up to her for that because, like, I feel like she has the better mentality for it. It took me until I was talking with my older sister, Kristen, to fully accept that, you know, freelancing is a lot of things. And it's designed that way. You are supposed to do a lot of things as a freelancer. Like, if you are a freelancer and you only do like one thing, that's not freelancing, that's a job. But my older sister, Kristen, brought up a good point. I need to staple this. I'll be right back. Her point was it's better to be a jack of all trades when you are a freelancer. It is far better to be that than it is to be an expert in your field. And the reason for that is because she recalls when we grew up out in bing-da-ling-ding, middle of nowhere, Ohio, and just about everybody and their son was a coal miner. And they put all of their eggs in the coal mining basket and did not develop any other skill besides coal mining. And now coal mining is phasing out. And people are like, what are we going to do? I don't have any other skills besides being a coal miner. And coal mining is so specific, it can't transition to anything else. So in that regard, my older sister brought up the point that it is way better to be a jack of all trades and know a little bit of everything as a freelancer. That way, if one gig is not doing super hot, you have other gigs going on that could potentially bring in more money to help cover the loss of the other line of income. And I have found that to be true because there's been months where, because Patreon has a bit of a churn element to it, like there are just some people, especially at the $1 level, who are like, hey, I have to stop pledging. And I don't blame them for that. But because of that, there are some months that Patreon does really well, and then there are some months that Patreon does not do really well. But in the months where Patreon is doing well, then those are usually the months where another aspect of freelancing is kind of drying up a little bit. I've also found that in the months where convention sales are doing really, really well, I'm not doing as much freelance work, which makes sense because I can't really work on freelance projects when I'm traveling. I mean, I could, but I have a personal rule where if I'm selling at a convention, I am 100% there for the customer. I don't bring out my laptop to work on stuff. I don't even do commissions at conventions. There are some artists that will do commissions at conventions, and they'll sit there and they'll draw something that a customer wants them to draw like the day of the convention. I do not do that because When I am at a convention, I am there to sell. And I am there to be present with the customer. The customer has gone to the convention for an experience. They want to talk to the artists and they want to get to know the artists. You can't get to know an artist if they're this close to their work and not focusing on the person in front of them. But that's a me thing. That's kind of my background in caricatures at Cedar Point talking there. And even then, if I am drawing people at conventions, it's on-the-spot caricatures that take 5 minutes or less. My personal fastest caricature that I've drawn is 45 seconds. My personal record for best caricature that was fast and actually looked like the person was about 1 minute and 15 seconds. Drawing caricatures is a handy skill to have, I have found. I've worked in IT for over 20 years now. I'm very much an IT Jane of all trades. I can generally either do it or figure it out. And that's really the mindset that you got to have when you're a freelancer, even if you've been in a field for so many years, is there's always something new to learn. That's something that really annoys me about people who work in a particular trade, like coal mining or mechanical work, is that they generally have this idea of, well, I've learned pretty much everything. And that strikes me as exceptionally boring. Not just boring, but stifling for the person too, because it's like, there's always something new to learn. But it also makes sense to be in IT for 20 years because there's a lot that can happen in IT in 20 years. Like, just thinking about the experience that I had recently of switching from a Windows 7 laptop to a Windows 10 laptop, I feel like I've leapfrogged into the future in that transition. And IT does that constantly. Like, it's not just like there's this movement that suddenly happened and it's going to change the field for the next 10 years. It's the field is constantly changing. So it makes sense that if you're going to be in IT for so many years that you have that kind of Jane of all trades or Jack of all trades mentality, because it's like there's always something new. Whereas with like coal mining or industrial work, there's really not a lot new other than, oh, here's a robot that can do your job 4 times faster. Not to bring politics into it, but that's something that I feel like a lot of people are forgetting about with regards to the coal industry. And I'm cognizant of these things because I live out in middle of nowhere, bing diddling ding, Ohio, next to West Virginia, and West Virginia prides itself on its coal mining culture. And there are a lot of people around here in this neck of the woods who are either coal miners or sons of coal miners or grandsons of coal miners. Like, coal mining is a prevalent thing in and around here. So I'm very much aware of the trends in the industry. And something that I think people outside of this area don't recognize is that a lot of coal mining jobs are not coming back because robots. A lot of coal mining jobs, and this is something that even Bob Murray, real life Montgomery Burns has admitted. Like Bob Murray, he is a coal mongol in this area. And he even admitted, and I think it was a newspaper interview, that a lot of the jobs that these politicians and everybody are trying to say, oh yes, we'll bring back coal mining jobs. Even Bob Murray was like, they're not coming back. Those jobs are not coming back because we have machines that can do them more efficiently and faster. And the real tragedy is that there are a lot of people who think that we can bring back industries like coal mining and all these other things, but we can't, because robots can do a better job of it than people can. Robots can actually excavate coal anywhere between 25 to 50% faster than a coal worker does. So there's that, plus the issue of health. Not every company wants to cover health insurance for a coal miner because black lung is very much a thing, and nobody wants to cover treatment for that. So if you are looking to be a freelancer, consider the industry that you are getting into and the health hazards that may be present in there. Because there can be health hazards depending on what industry that you work in. I didn't think about this when I first started doing comics and art for a living, but one health hazard that I became cognizant of, there's actually a couple of them. The one that first came to mind was just the issues of sitting for long extended periods of time. I don't necessarily have this problem a whole ton because I broke my tailbone when I was in the 8th grade. So nowadays it never healed properly either. So like nowadays I can't sit for more than an hour and a half, sometimes an hour, depending on the weather. Because my bones react to the barometric pressure. But lately, I can't really sit for more than an hour to an hour and a half without the lower half of my body being like, you need to get up or I am going to seize and you will not be able to move out of this chair. And that's when I have to get up and stretch and move around. There's also, I feel like maybe a little bit of ADHD in me in that, like, I focus super well if I have ambient noise. But if it's like dead silence, or even if it's like a music soundtrack that I've heard over and over again, or it's podcasts, like I love podcasts, but if they last for more than 10 minutes, I have a hard time focusing on them while also doing work. Because after a while, my brain's just like, you need to get up and get some hot tea, or you need to get up and clean the bathroom, or you need to get up and do this thing. Get up and play with the cat. Like, there's always something that my brain wants to do, unless I turn on a white noise generator like Rainy Mood, which plays rain noises. Rain noises help me focus. I'm going to sit and have my snacks and answer any questions that you might have. Or just generally chat with you. That's fine too. But I'm moving the peanut butter over here. I'm just going to sit and enjoy my lunch. Let's enjoy lunch together. If you're having lunch right now, let me know what you're snacking on. I still have leftover stir fry. I ended up making the stir fry that I talked about in last week's live stream. I made that stir fry and I still have some of that left over. So I think I'll have some of that when I'm done with these apple slices. because it needs eaten. Or I could cook up some extra eggs and have egg and rice burritos because I still have those. I made grilled chicken pitas at the start of the stream to eat while I was watching. Oh, that sounds good. Oh, that sounds really good. I had microwave White Castle sliders an hour ago. I wanted to try to have lunch before starting the live stream, and that just didn't happen. I had to run over and pick up my prescription earlier today and then take care of laundry. So now is the time that I can sit down and eat. The comment about the grilled chicken pitas. Yesterday, I was in Columbus, and I stopped at, oh God, what was the name of that coffee shop? I stopped at a coffee shop and I had lunch. I had a hot cocoa and something that they called the autumn veggie wraps or something like that. But it had a bunch of veggies to it, including spinach. There were dried cranberries, apple slices. I think cucumber was in there. I don't remember, but it was largely vegetarian. It was delicious. I just noticed that Chris, the writer of Validation, sent me a message. Hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I have forgotten the new script. It's okay, Chris. Oh, my friend Desi found the little dragon sketch that I sent them. I have a friend of mine who I write letters with. I'm actually going to see them at Genghis Khan tomorrow. I had sent them a little dragon sketch, very much in lieu of the little paintings that I had for sale for Dragons, a sketchbook on Kickstarter. I sent them a little sketch, very much like that. And they had lost it temporarily because they moved house. And now they found it again. Yay! I'm so happy. And they posted a picture, and it's great. I hope you can see it. It's this little guy right here. Yeah. I love drawing dragons like that. They're so much fun to do. And I kind of came across that style on accident while making Dragons, a sketchbook for Inktober. Because Dragons, a sketchbook is a collection of sketches that I did for Inktober this past year. Inktober is the artist challenge where you do a new ink drawing every day during the month of October. Partway through the month, I drew up these little baby dragons based on a plush that I have. I'm going to show you this plush. It is adorable. This little guy, I named him Cherub. He's a little dragon chub. He's got a little nubbin tail, and he's adorable, and I love it. I love dragons too. I see your comment. I love dragons. They are my favorite thing. They were actually the first things that I started to draw when I was wee. Before I drew cats or people or anything else, I drew dragons. I love them so much. Yes. His name is Cherub, and he's adorable, and you can't feel it because it's a camera, but it's just, he's so incredibly soft. Oh my gosh. I got him from a vendor named Lemon Penguin. You know, I'll go ahead and make a banner. Lemon Penguin. They were a vendor that I met at MatsuriCon, and they had these little dragon babies, and I love them to bits, and I got one, and I'm so happy, and I'm keeping him. I'm not giving him away. I've been trying to downsize my stuff in the preparation for the move, coming in the spring, but cherub is one of those things that I'm not giving away if I can help it. But there was one point fairly early on, like in the first third of Inktober, where I was like, I'm running out of ideas for what kind of dragons to draw. What should I draw? And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try drawing little baby dragons like cherub and doing it in like little ink blobs. I was thinking of another artist who they take like coffee that they load up onto their paintbrush, and then they just let the coffee drip onto the paper, and then they'll like draw birds around those coffee drops, or I think it's tea. But the point being is that they do these little like drip pieces of art, and then they take those little drips and they draw birds out of those shapes. And I was like, well, what if I tried doing just a solid color and drawing a little face on it? Kind of like those drip paintings, but it's not drip paintings, it's like markers. So I took my Copic markers and I was drawing little blobs, and then I drew little faces, and then I was like, what if I added bigger wings and a longer neck? And then I started drawing those, and then it got progressively cuter in my mind. And then I started drawing them a bit larger, and then I started drawing line arts on them. And then I was like, I want to keep going with this. And it eventually culminated into some very complicated kind of pieces, but it was very serendipitous, and I love how this turned out. Actually, I was going to do a little screen share to show some of these pieces of art, but I need to plug a couple of things in first. Okay. Now that I have this camera, or now that I have the webcam angled back in this direction, I'm going to plug the laptop back in so that it can charge a little bit. I will say this new laptop that I have, low-key, holds a charge way better than my previous laptop, Odysseus. Loki is a HP Spectre. Odysseus is a Toshiba Satellite, like a 7-year-old one. Like, he's very tired. Switching the banner back to that, now that I have given Lemon Penguin a shout out. Okay. Let's do a screen share super quick. Maybe? Trying to get this screen share thing to work. Okay, hold on. Okay. Ah! I found the button. Okay. Okay. Boop. Share. Okay. Yeah, we got that figured out. Excellent. Okay. Okay. Oh, I need to get to work with me. Okay. I keep these. Oh, I gotta start this up again. There it goes. Okay. I keep my art on an external hard drive. And I want to show you what I'm talking about with these dragon sketches. So these were the dragon babies that I started with. the little like kind of little blobs with the little dragon cherubs. And then I was like, I'll add legs and wings. And then I was like, what if I added some lines? And then it just got progressively more artsy, and it turned into stuff like this. She was painted freehand with, where's it at? There it is. This here Molotow paint pen. This is actually kind of dying and losing a lot of its color. So I'm going to need to get a new one of these through Art Snacks soon. Like Art Snacks is probably the easiest way to get one of these things, because this was in one of their boxes. Tell Graphics, GRAFX, Aqua Ink Pump Soft Liner. I am not kidding about the spelling. Like, this is how it's spelled. But the way it works is that you take the cap off and then you dip it into this nozzle here, and then you press it down a couple of times to activate the tip, and then you paint with it. Chameleon pens, I've worked with those a couple of times. They operate differently, but the Molotow Graphics pens, that's how they work. And I used that to paint this little dragon lady, and then I drew the fine lines on her spine and the backs of her wings and her eye. I drew that with one of these fine liners. I don't think it was this one, but it was something similar to this. This is a Zig Millennium 0.5 micron tip, which, you know, pro tip, if you can avoid it, don't work with Sakura micron pens. Don't work with Sakura micron pens. Like, I only have this Sakura Pigma micron because I got this through Art Snacks. That's the only reason I have this. If it were up to me, I would not carry this. And the reason I suggest against those is because they lift really easy. Because the way that I work my inks is I'm going to turn that off for a hot second. There we go. The way that I work my inks is that I will pencil it first, then I will ink on top of those pencils, and then I will take an eraser to erase the pencil lines underneath of the inks. Sakura pens lift really easy when you do it that way. So I would not recommend working with those. That said, I am working with this pen for the first time. This is a Pentel. Gosh, I wish I could remember the name of this, because like it has a Japanese name and it's printed on the side there. I don't know how well you can see it, but it's got a brush tip on one end, and then it's got a flexible fine tip on the other end. I've been using this to ink my comics because I was using my zebra brush pens, but those are dying, and I really needed something to replace them in a pinch, and I got this because this was the closest equivalent that I could find at Michael's. That said, I don't know how well they're going to keep the inks on the page. Hold on a second. Okay, I left it in the scanner bed. I'll let my wife know she has a growing collection of micron pens. Yes, please let her know. Like, they're fine for sketching if you are just working with those pens. If you're not working with pencils underneath of them, microns are fine. They also make really good like bullet journal type pens, but I would not recommend using them for inking comics and then erasing the pencil lines underneath of them, because they will lift. You will notice in some of the early issues or the early pages of Validation that some of the lines are kind of gray looking, and that's because those are Sakura pens. And then partway through producing Validation, I switched to a different pen that stayed on the page. So I don't work with Sakura anymore. Actually, while I'm thinking about it, I'll go ahead and showcase this page here. This is the Legend of Jamie Roberts, page 48, the inks. This was inked with this here pen that I was just talking about. And it actually kept the lines really, really well. Like when I was erasing them, they stayed, mostly. Now, unfortunately, I had to go back in and edit this in Clip Studio Paint, but there is some smudging on Jamie's face in here and on a couple of other spots because I was in a bit of a rush. I went ahead and erased some of the lines, even though the ink was still somewhat wet. I should have let it dry first, but that said, these are not like instant dry inks. Like this pen here is not an instant dry. You'll need to let it sit for like a minute before you erase anything. It's another reason that I really like the zebra brush pens. These guys right here. Yeah, the zebra something something or other because they're Japanese. I got these through Art Snacks, also, full disclosure. These come in a couple of different tips. This one is more on the finer edge. This one is the bolder edge. This makes really nice thick lines. Page 47 of The Legend of Jamie Roberts was inked with this one. In case you were wondering why the lines were extra thick on that page, that's why. For a while, I was inking Legend of Jamie Roberts with this particular pen tip, which is finer than the light gray pen that I showed a second ago. Definitely finer than the dark gray, almost black pen. But I have been inking with these, but these are dying on me. So I used that Pentel. I used this Pentel one in a pinch, but I'm going to be ordering replacement zebra pens. Those ones dry really fast, and they don't lift whenever you erase the pencil lines underneath of them, which is why I like to work with them. This will do for now until I can order those in, but if it were up to me, I would just work with zebra pens. Back to snacking. Oh. I have a visitor. This is Bree Bree. I'll show the angle a little bit better. Yeah, this is Bree Bree. Hey, Bree Bree. She's my lap cuddler. She's the one who likes to cuddle on my lap the most of the two. Like, Scarlett will get into my lap, and then she will wonder why she got in my lap. But Bree Bree deliberately seeks out my lap because she likes pets. They're both 13 years old. They're at the point now where they don't really like chase after toys anymore. They just want cuddles. Yeah. This one, Bree Bree, though, she's my mouser. She catches mice. She's also the one that will hunt stuff down and chase after things. She's the most playful of the two. Scarlett just wants you to acknowledge that she's pretty. Bree Bree likes to play, and she will knock over everything in an effort to either mark it as hers or try to pet herself on the face. I don't know if you can hear, but there are very subtle purrs. She likes descriptions. Yep, we adopted them when they were kittens. Not necessarily newborns, but close to newborns. My neighbor across the street at the time found them both in her mailbox because somebody just left them there. Bree Bree still had the umbilical cord attached. And there was a third cat. We did not adopt the third one. The third one was a little boy cat named Will. That one was adopted by somebody in the neighbor's family. But we adopted Scarlett and Bree because they were the other two that were found in her mailbox. And at the time, we really wanted cats because we missed having cats in the house. And so we just adopted these two. Yeah. And they've been with us ever since. The month that I lived in Arizona, which was August of 2013 to about June of 2014. In the months that I lived out in Phoenix, the cats were not with me. They still lived in Ohio. They don't take to moving house super duper well. But then they only moved house once. But they don't like change very much. They're grumpy old ladies. Aren't you grumpy old ladies? Cat loves table. Like I said, she'll headbutt herself to try to give herself more pettings. Oh, there's an extra loud chuff purr. Funny story. I thought that Scarlett would be my cat and Bree would be my little sister's cat. And then it turned out that Bree liked me the best and Scarlett liked Kia the best. Because cats make up their own gosh dang minds. You are shedding. I'm going to get the brush and I'm going to brush you. You are shedding like bananas. Because yes, bananas shed. She doesn't really like to be brushed, but she needs the brushings. No, Scarlett is the one that loves getting brushed. Scarlett will deliberately seek me out just to get brushed. And anytime that she sees the brush, she just immediately starts to purr. Yep. They're both shedding their summer coats and trying to grow in their winter coats. So they're both shedding more than usual. Yeah. Yeah. See, this is what you can do when you settle. And you let me brush you. Even with the sensitive skin and stomach cat food, Bree still has really bad dandruff whenever I brush her. I'm not sure what to do about that. Oh, Snaggletooth. Bree does this thing sometimes whenever there's something going on that she's not 100% a fan of. Like earlier, like before the stream started, I was folding laundry, which is Bree's worst enemy. Bree hates the laundry. And I was folding up the laundry and Bree was about ready to tackle and she does this face that's like, that's the face that she makes whenever there's something going on that she's not 100% a fan of, is she'll just lift up a Snaggletooth. Hey, Scarlett. Are you jealous? Sometimes, if Scarlett decides that I am giving too much attention to Bree or to something else, Scarlett will just come over and demand my attention. My last kitty hated to be brushed. One year, his fur got so matted from his winter coat shedding, we had to shave him. He seemed to enjoy that summer. I'm a bit concerned that I may have to shed, or I may have to shave Scarlett, because she doesn't like to have her belly brushed, but she needs to have her belly brushed because if we don't brush her belly, she's going to get mats.
You already have a mat trying to develop. You should let me brush your belly.
She's not arguing with me, so. Give her a couple of brushes.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is an awkward angle to brush you at, Kat. All right.
Oh, what? What? I set the brush down. Did you want more brushes?
Yeah, she wanted more brushes. Well, too bad. It's not the best angle to be brushing a cat, unless you're sitting in my lap. One last apple slice. Whoa. That was a big dollop of peanut butter. I apologize. I think now would be a good time to announce that there's more than likely, I'm like 99% sure that there's not going to be a live stream next week on Saturday, because I will be getting ready to go up to Toledo to visit some friends of mine. That said, I don't know, it depends. Because the reason I'm going to Toledo is I'm visiting a friend of mine to go watch Promare, the anime, because she won't stop talking about it. I saw a couple of clips of it and I was like, I am willing to give this a shot. So, because, how do I say this politely? Anime is kind of quickly becoming not my scene, because there's just some tropes that don't resonate with me anymore because I'm 30 and I'm old and I'm jaded, and there are just some things about anime that I'm just like, no, this is obviously geared towards somebody younger than me. But Promare, I'm willing to give it a shot because the few clips that I saw of it on YouTube were not only gorgeously animated, but the voice acting was good, and the premise of it, while the delivery a lot of the moments are just absolutely silly, there is just something about the main character being this like hot-blooded, like we could do anything kind of attitude that I don't know why, but I like it.
What? I know, I'm talking to the camera and not you. Yes.
Freaking Scarlett.
Yes. Yes, you. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Okay. Yes. You don't say.
Oh no, don't you dare. She was beginning to chew on one of the cords. I do not like it when she chews on one of the cords. She is my cord chewer. Bree is my plastic chewer, Scarlett is my cord chewer, and I have to watch that. Many a PlayStation cord has been ruined by Scarlett. Also, many a phone charging cord. I was about to put peanut butter on another apple slice, and I am out of apple slices. Awkward. Let's see how quickly Brie gets out of my lap when I do this.
Billy.
She hates Billy. She does not like being touched on the belly. So if I need her off my lap, that's what I do. Oh, I should lower the chair so that I can push this in. I bought this chair off of my mom's boyfriend because he wasn't using it. I vastly prefer this over the chair that I did have. All right, I'm going to get another lunch sample ready. I'll be right back. Oh, dang, I forgot about that. I'm going to have this. Never mind, I fibbed about the stir fry leftovers. Ruffle. Yeah. Yeah, Brie does not like belly. She's never liked being touched on the belly. And that's the best way to get her off of your lap, though, is like the easiest way is just reach under and just tickle her belly, and that gets her off of you. But yeah, I don't have stir fry leftovers. What I have instead is leftover fried potatoes and eggs, so I'm just going to have those instead. Anyway, I'll put this away. I really need to reorganize this corner. I need to get another of these here portfolios. This thing. I need to get another one of these. This is full of pages of The Legend of Jamie Roberts up to page, I think, 47. No, page 45. And then I have like this character sheet that I penciled. This thing right here. I penciled this here page as like a height reference for the characters, because realistically Jamie is the shortest out of the bunch, and Basho and a few other characters are going to be like freaking giants compared to everybody else. That's one thing that's been kind of tricky with drawing The Legend of Jamie Roberts, is keeping the height of Basho consistent. Which is part of the reason I wanted to make this character height chart. It's just I haven't drawn Basho on the height chart yet. And I need to fix that. What else was sitting there? Okay. Those are all the excess pages. I have like 3 pages of inks of The Legend of Jamie Roberts that don't fit inside of that binder. I need another one of those binders. And then I have this. This is my template for the lines. I will take one of these blank 11 by 17s and then this like outline sheet to a light box so that I can trace where the edge marks are, because that marks the live areas, the bleeds, and all that stuff. I will be right back. I'm going to check on it.
Yes? Yes? Come here. Okay, nope. Nope. Oh, grump.
Scarlett is the grumpiest of the two. I have a pepper grinder in the other room, so I was putting some pepper on these. Hold on, I gotta adjust the height of this chair. There we go. It is a drastic difference in height. Okay. I should run through the checklist. I have a checklist of the stuff that I have for convention gear. I should run through it and make sure that I have everything covered. Because I already have my zine spinner rack, my wheelie cart, and an extra 4-foot table packed into my car. The setup that I have for my convention gear is largely just 2 milk crates, and almost everything fits inside of those 2 milk crates. And I deliberately designed this setup that way because I am just one person, and I really needed to find a setup that I would only have to make one trip out of the car and not have to worry about making multiple trips to the car to retrieve my stuff. And for the most part, this method has worked. The method of having everything all in one place or split between those 2 milk crates, and then not having to make multiple trips. So the milk crates can fit extra copies of my books, my box full of zines and mini comics, a tackle box that I have full of buttons, another tackle box that I keep my Sharpies, my scissors, and my tape, and also some binder clips. I'm going to get the list. I have a list. I'm wearing leggings as pants, and that's because I'm not getting out of the house. Don't judge me. Okay, list. The Master Con pack list. A couple of these got scratched out because I no longer deal with them. Like, the Prince book is not something I worry about anymore. I don't deal in... I don't put books full of prints out on the tables anymore. I pull them out of the places that I store them in, and I lay them out on the table flat so that they're all displayed all at once. I also don't have to worry about my tablet or the charger for it because it broke, and I just sold it for scrap and got like $10 out of it. So, okay. On the list, we have the zine display, which is downstairs already. Downstairs is a 1-car garage because this house is built so that it can have a garage down in the basement. Let's see, a book box, which I will pull off the shelf. Zine box, which I will also pull off the shelf. Tablecloth, which is already in the milk crates. A cash box, which is also already in the milk crates. Oh, a sales tracking sheet. I keep a little sheet when I go to conventions to keep track of what sells. I'm actually going to have to update this sheet because I have not updated it since, oh lordy, since the previous convention, whenever that was. Oh, it's in the Dropbox. That's right. Now I'm going to do it a bit. Bah! Okay, we're doing this. There we go. Okay. There we go. Infinite screens. There it is. Okay. So I went into Dropbox and I have... Where'd it go? There it is. The convention sales tracking sheet. If there is any one thing that I am grateful for with, oh no, not Excel. I don't need Excel. I want Leap to get off the screen. I don't want that. I need to edit the program that this automatically opens with. There it is, open with LibreOffice. Because that was the program that I made this with. LibreOffice is like OpenOffice, except it doesn't have the potential of leaking your personal information. Okay. This is my convention sales tracking sheet. This is what I use to keep track of the sales that I make at conventions. This sucker lasts about 2 pages. And this is the sheet that is liable to change the most. My inventory doesn't change its offerings very much, but this can change its offerings. Let's see, what have we got? Oh, I'm going to delete this line. This was something that I did for another convention. The idea of, oh, buy 2 Johnson & Sirs for $25 because their list price for $15 and buying 2 regular price is $30. And I thought that I would try a deal where you can buy 2 Johnson & Sirs for $25, and nobody jumped on that deal, so I'm just getting rid of it. Let's see. I'm also going to get rid of this Jamie Roberts 2 for $10 deal because regular price, The Legend of Jamie Roberts, is $6, and buying 2 of them regular price is $12. And I thought that I would try a similar deal where you could get 2 copies of The Legend of Jamie Roberts for $10. And again, nobody jumped on it, so just getting rid of it. I don't know what to do about Post-Apocalyptic Nick because Post-Apocalyptic Nick is not my book. It is a book that Chris, the writer of Validation, made with Tony DiGirolamo and another artist. I offered to carry this book because, hey, it's Chris's work. Also, I did read it and like it at the time. The issue is that it's not selling super well. I feel like, though, if you saw the cover for this, maybe you would get why. I'm going to see if I can find copies of, oh, actually, I have a copy of it on my bookshelf over here. Where is that? Oh, it's on the other end. Dang it. There it is. Found it. Okay. Okay. Now, if you are familiar with my work, you are familiar with the kind of cover arts that I use. I mean, you saw the cover art that I use for Dragons, the sketchbook, and a lot of my covers are in that kind of vein where it's simplistic. There's like a single figure, or it's just focused on a couple of figures. I'll go ahead and share. Do I have the dual screens? Yes, I have the dual screens going. Good. I'll go ahead and share the other comic covers that I have done so that you get an idea of what my table layout usually looks like. Like, this is the cover for Thoughtful Dinosaur. Super simplistic, but it features the character. Actually, you know what? My artwork merch, because I take pictures of my table setups. And my table setups are honestly probably the best place to look at the cover arts of my books in action. Where's a good one? picture from SPX, actually. So those are all of the book covers that I have. Not Shaman. Shaman is not my book. That was done by my table neighbor at SPX. But yeah, all of these covers look the way that they do. Now, here's the cover of Post-Apocalyptic Nick. And maybe you can see the problem. It's not just that the art is a completely different style. It is that portraying even this character, as badass as she is in the story, like grasping onto his legs like that, like, for one thing, that idea is old. For another thing, that idea doesn't resonate super well with certain audiences that could be reading this and enjoying it. And for another thing, it doesn't service this character super well. I get the feeling that they went with this cover because they really needed a cover for the book, and this was the first idea that came to them. I say that with love, because I feel like Chris is going to see this at some point when this becomes a video. I say this with love. This is not the best cover for this book, because the actual comic itself is great. It is great. It's just the cover does not do it justice. So because of that, though, it can be really hard to convince people to give this comic a shot, because that cover does not work for the book. Like, for one thing, Nick, the main character, this little nerd right here, like, he is the central character. He is not a hero. And you can kind of tell that by his body language on the cover, but that kind of layout should be for people who are in kind of a heroic stance, not necessarily for guys like Nick. Nick is meek. At least in the beginning half of the book, he is meek. But that is not a cover that services that well, and it does not convey that well. Visual language, it's relevant for your cover arts. Oh my God. Okay. Anyway, tangent over. Wow, that is very different. I can see it looking like someone left a book on your table by mistake. Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of the problem with selling this book, is that it stands out. It stands out from my table, but not necessarily in a good way. And it's a shame, because like what I would like to do with my table layouts for Fantasyville Productions, the company that I run, I would like to showcase other people's work alongside my own and have it displayed in such a way that it looks like it's all part of the same company. Right now, though, I only have like 1 or 2 other titles by other people, and it can be kind of hard to find a place for that on my table and have it be like, oh yes, this is part of the same company. Yes, buying this will help support the artists who make this book. Because if I just have my stuff and then Post-Apocalyptic Nick, that stands out. But in a way, like you said, Jessica, like somebody just left it on the table by mistake. So it can be hard to try to sell this book outside of maybe consignment deals. I have not tried to sell this book on consignment yet, but I'm thinking probably that's the best thing to do with Post-Apocalyptic Nick, is to just reach out to Quimby's or maybe even Wasted Ink. I don't know if Wasted Ink would carry this though, but just reaching out to independent comic shops and bookstores and asking them if they would be interested in carrying this book. Because then at least on those shelves, it's like, oh, this is just another offering. If it was on my table at conventions, it would be, oh, somebody left this here, I shouldn't buy it. And that's not the intent. That's not the intent of this book. So that's the conundrum that I find myself with post-apocalyptic Nick. That said, saying all of that, I think, back to screen share, I think what I'll do is I'll go ahead and take post-apocalyptic Nick off of the sales sheet. I'm preparing this for Genghis Khan tomorrow, so I'll go ahead and not offer post-apocalyptic Nick at Genghis Khan tomorrow. I'll go ahead and just offer the other stuff that I do. I may still offer one comic that's done by my friend Ben Wright Human. I'm trying to get a piece of hair off of the screen. Okay. There's a comic that I'm also trying to sell on commission, done by a friend of mine, Ben Wright Human. The comic is called Adventures in Kushonia, and it was a comic that he did in 24 hours for 24-hour comic day. I'm going to see if I can... Oh, I know where copies of those ones are. Those are within easy reach. There they are. Okay. This was something that my buddy Ben did. Adventures in Kushonia. He did this entirely in watercolors for a comic artist challenge called 24-Hour Comic Day, where you draw a 24-page comic, usually a mini comic. You draw a 24-page comic in 24 hours or less. He managed to make this in, I think he said 23 hours. So kudos to him on that one. That said, there are some pages that, like, they're very sloppy. I say this with love because that, I don't know how well you can see. There it is. Yeah. I mean, it is sloppy, but he was making this in 24 hours with watercolors, which is not easy. But as far as like cover arts go, this is a bit more in line with what I have going on with the other stuff on my table. This fits better with lineup than what post-apocalyptic Nick does. I say this with love because, like, I do love both of these comics. It's just post-apocalyptic Nick is, it's not geared for my audience. Sorry. And also the cover doesn't do the book justice. Like, it's not a great cover. I'm sorry. I may reheat this. But that's one goal that I have with Fantasyville Productions is I want to be able to sell other people's work alongside my own work on my table, because not everybody's going to be able to make it to every show. And I feel like there are some artists who, for financial reasons, just won't be able to make it to a lot of conventions. And that's fine, because convention tables are very pricey. Like, I'm getting a full table at Genghis Khan, and that cost me like $90. Not everybody can afford $90 for a table just to showcase your stuff. So I can get that. And part of the reason I want to try to showcase other people's work is to give those artists a chance to showcase their stuff at conventions that they maybe otherwise wouldn't have been able to go to. And especially with Adventures in Kushonia, my buddy Ben won't be able to make it to Genghis Khan or to some of the other shows that I go to, because a lot of the shows that I do right now are in the Pittsburgh-ish area, and Ben is based in Columbus, Ohio. So two very different circles of the art scenes. So I could get this, the reach that he would maybe want, which is outside of the Columbus area, And that's why I wanted to carry his book. Also, it's hilarious. And that's why I wanted to carry the book, because I only carry the stuff that I like. If I read it and I like it, I will carry it. And if I believe in it, I will carry it. Like if I think that it will sell well, I will have it on the table. I'm in some ways a lot like Pumat Soul from Critical Role Campaign 2. Because you have to understand that I am first and foremost a business for profit. And I feel that's a little of the same thing. Like I am still running a business and I am still trying to sell stuff to make up for the costs of things. And if it's not selling well, I'm just going to either find a new market to try to sell it, or I'm just not going to carry it. I'll try to see if any stores who sell stuff on consignment would be willing and or able to carry Post-Apocalyptic Nick. I think it would do better in those settings than trying to have it on my table. Adventures in Kushonia, I think it would do pretty well at like Quimby's or Wasted Ink or Neither Nor Zine Bistro. I think it would do really well at like zine distros, but it's just a matter of reaching out to them and being like, hey, would you like to carry this book? And I do have agreements in place with both Chris, the writer of Post-Apocalyptic Nick, and Ben, the creator of Adventures in Kushonia, where if it sells, they get the majority of the cut. I only get like 40% of it. And if the books don't sell a certain amount within a calendar year of my acquiring the title, then I just hand back the copies that haven't sold and I give the copies back to them. That's the agreements that I have with them. Another thing I want to try to add to the repertoire of Fantasyville Productions is crafts. You know what? I'll go ahead and I'll show this off because this is cute. And also, I feel like this would work well with the themes of Fantasyville Productions and the business. This is a dragon egg dice bag. I actually crocheted this myself. I can make more of these. However, I also know that there are a fair number of crafters who can do stuff like that who are not able to make it to a lot of conventions. Sometimes for health reasons and a lot of times for other reasons. But I want to try to carry more crafts on my table as well because I know that those can do well depending on the venue. But that dragon egg dice bag is like, oh, it's dragon stuff. So it's fantasy. Fantasyville. I get it. Kind of a connection. It's another reason I'm carrying Adventures in Kushonia because it is fantasy. It's a fantasy parody, but it is a fantasy. That's the thing with Fantasyville Productions is that the work that I want to carry will be themed around fantasy. It's fantasy themed stuff, whether that's fantasy comedy or fantasy parody or fantasy adventure. Like if it is a fantasy work, I want to carry it if I read it and I like it and I think it will sell well. Because Grace bless the comic scene, but there's so much sci-fi. I'm kind of sci-fi'd out. Like I have to be in a mood to do sci-fi stuff. Not even so much superheroes. Like, I'm tired of superheroes too. Very tired of it. But I don't see very many fantasy titles outside of manga. And I would like to try to make fantasy works more well-known. Because fantasy as a genre is something that I get tickled by. I really like fantasy as a genre. Like, a lot of people think it's just escapist, but good fantasy is a commentary on our past and what transpired before, so that maybe we can look at it with fresh eyes and say, maybe we can learn from this. It's also, fantasy is a good way to look at things outside of yourself with fresh eyes. Which is why fantasy resonates with me so much. Etsy is full of crafts like that. You could have trouble making sales, although being there in front of people does have a big advantage. Yeah, I'm not doing Etsy. For one thing, Etsy charges you per product to list on their website, and I am not all about that. So if I was going to sell crafts, it would be in person. The other reason that I was thinking about adding crafts into the lineup for Fantasyville Productions is it would open up more festivals to my docket, because right now I'm pretty much doing like local shows that are not craft shows, because again, craft shows are usually hosted by churches, and churches may take issue with some of the stuff that I do. So I primarily just do local comic conventions, library appearances, and pop culture conventions. The objective that I had in mind for adding craft stuff is that by adding craft stuff, then I could potentially get a table at like craft shows. I don't mean listing it on Etsy. I mean, you would be partly competing with Etsy. Yeah, that's the trouble with listing crafts for sale online, is that Etsy is a big competitor. Yeah. I had the idea of, because I have the domain name for fantasyvilleproductions.com already. The objective that I had was to have fantasyvilleproductions.com be a website where people can buy stuff from me in bulk. So like, if you're an independent bookstore and you wanted to get like 10 copies of Johnson & Sir, you could do that through fantasyvilleproductions.com. And it would also work for selling craft stuff. That said, there is a tricky bit to selling craft stuff online through avenues that are not Etsy. I came across this kind of problem with Store Envy, actually, and it's one of the reasons that I switched away from Store Envy, because Store Envy, there are a fair number of like zinesters and artists who, or like illustration artists, who list their stuff up on Store Envy because it's free. The trouble with Store Envy is that it can get saturated. So I just opened up my own online store through, you know what, I've talked about this enough times. I'm going to make a banner for this. This, shop.kelseydcrawford.com. I've plugged it enough times, I might as well share the link. So, okay. Part of the reason I even started this online store that you can find at this domain is because Store Envy was starting to want to offer things to me that WordPress could do for free, but Store Envy was charging a monthly fee for the same kind of service. And I was like, well, if it's doing that, I might as well just run my own store. So that's what I did, was I just opened up my own store at this domain. And the other reason that I switched away from Store Envy was because Store Envy got pretty saturated with illustrators and zinesters wanting to sell their stuff, and it's kind of hard to stand out in a market like that. So for the meantime, I have my own online store, and I primarily sell through my email newsletter, but like not actively. I'm not trying to have every newsletter update be like, check out this new thing that's on my online store. It's more of a, this is a bonus thing to offer on the email newsletter. It's not the highlight of the thing unless I want it to be. But even then, if it's something that I want it to highlight, that's like a once in a while type of thing. Another thing too, not sure that I necessarily want to sell my own crafts through my store, because crochet is something that I do for me. Crochet is like cooking for me. It is what I do to unwind. I don't necessarily want to monetize that. That said, I would like to help other crafters monetize their hobby if that's something that they want to pursue. So that's why I wanted to offer selling crafts through Fantasyville Productions. I'm still working out how exactly I want to go about it, because, you know, Etsy is a contender. I think though that there should be room for competitors to list their own stuff on their own sites and do it that way. Like, there should be space for that. Another reason that I want to try to avoid Etsy too is because back when I had a trial of Skillshare, there were a number of classes on Skillshare talking about how you could make passive income on Etsy by pretty much coming up with a design for something on Canva and then having an outside company like Printful print the thing for you, and only having the listing on Etsy, and then you don't have to make the object yourself. Printful prints the thing, and Etsy handles the sales end of it. And I still don't know how to feel about this, because like, Etsy was built and designed to be a marketplace for people who made stuff on their own. And I don't know how to feel about people who are like coming up with a quippy thing on Canva, which does all of the design work for them, and then listing it through a printing fulfillment service like Printful. I don't know how to feel about that yet. I was considering linking up Printful through my online store so that I could offer things like tote bags and t-shirts and things with my designs on them, but not having me print it, having Printful print it, while also listing my books and mini comics and stuff alongside that stuff and having it all in one place. It's just, I haven't figured out the technical kinks for that yet. I haven't really looked into Printful too much. I was considering, and I'm still kind of considering, going to Redbubble, and maybe going back to Redbubble, because I had a Redbubble for a while back in like, when was this, like 2013, 2014? Like, I had a Redbubble, but it wasn't making hardly any money. So I left Redbubble and I started working on Store Envy. And then Store Envy was trying to upcharge me for stuff that I could do on my own. So I just made my own store. That said, Redbubble does have the ability to print stuff on t-shirts and notebook covers and gadget covers and stuff like that. And I'm considering getting a Redbubble to license some designs that I have that maybe won't necessarily make good like standalone prints or comics or things, but like Like, one of the things I want to design is a tessellated pattern with Mr. Dino and Friends, and having that be like a t-shirt design or a notebook cover design, and selling it through like Redbubble, or maybe figuring out how to do it through Printful so that I can just list it on my own website. Still up in the air about which option that I want to pursue. But I do want to get into the art licensing game and creating patterns and things like that, because it's another stream of income, and it's another thing to add to the freelance portfolio that could potentially help cover stuff in case one of the other income streams goes limp for a little bit. Because I'll tell you one thing, convention season only lasts so long. And that's part of the reason I even have a part-time job at my local gas station, is because convention season only lasts for like 9 months out of the year. And then during the winter months, I need something. But it's still something I'm considering, and I'm still thinking about it, and I'm still pondering what I want to do. And Redbubble came to mind because I remember reading somewhere that Redbubble, of the print-on-demand sites, Redbubble got the most traffic. It got the most people going onto their website looking at stuff. Okay, you know what? I'm going to reheat this. This is cold. Oh, I need to stir the soup. I'm going to mark a couple of things off of the bullet journal to-do list over here. Yes, I keep a bullet journal. It has made keeping track of my to-do list so much easier. Okay. I'll go ahead and give you an update on the apartment hunt and how that's going so far. Because yesterday I toured a couple of places over in Columbus, because I was in the Columbus area visiting family for Thanksgiving anyway. I really just want to hold off on the apartment search until like the later half of December, or maybe even into January. Like, I'll keep the Zumper app on my phone, but I may just turn some of the alerts off, because for one thing, I feel like I'm looking a little too soon. Like I'm trying to plan too far ahead with apartment searching, but at the same time, trying to find a place that's a 2-bedroom that will allow 3 cats is difficult, because my my friend who wants to become my roommate, Alex, I'm totally okay with her becoming my roommate because we did our little Q&A, we talked about it, and we determined that we'd make really good roommates. And the thing is that she has a cat and I have 2 cats, and there are a lot of places, especially in Columbus, that have a 2-pet limit and are very strict about it. So there is a part of me that wants to hold off on apartment searching for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm talking about you. Yeah. Oh, what?
Oh, now that I gave her attention, now she doesn't want my attention. She just wanted to say hi and scratch on the wall.
Like a dick. Yeah. Little attention seeker.
Another reason that I want to maybe put off the search is because I want to see how things develop over the next couple of months. Especially with my little sister, because my little sister Kia, right now is in the Pittsburgh area. I'm not going to say where exactly, but she has a little dog who is sick. Her roommate also has a dog who is exceptionally sick. And I don't know which of them is going to die first. But if one of those dogs dies in the next 4 months, I was thinking about asking Kia if she wanted to take in probably Scarlett, because Scarlett always liked Kia the best. Bree, if I had to rehome either one of the cats, Bree is not leaving me, because I feel like if Bree left me, her heart would be absolutely shattered, because she loves me. I am her human. There is no changing that. But Scarlett, she could live without me. But I do want to check to see like what my sister's situation is in the next couple of months and what's going on with the dogs that are at her place. Scarlett does not like the dog, but I feel like if that was her only animal companion, she would eventually grow to accept it, but we'll see. I don't want Scarlett to suffer unduly because of my short-sightedness or my desire to find an apartment that will fit the criteria that we have. I think there are some house listings that will allow 3 cats, but they're like in duplexes, or they're in or they're like standalone houses, and those tend to be, I mean, it depends on the neighborhood, but it tends to be pricier. There are some neighborhoods that you just want to avoid, though. Like, I have been told to avoid the Whitehall area of Columbus, which is on the southeast side of the city. It's also just south of where the airport is. So, pro tip, if you're looking to move to Columbus, Ohio, don't move to Whitehall. Apartment hunting is one of the worst things ever, and every place I've lived has only allowed 2 cats. Sad face. I know. That's the most difficult part, is looking for a place that will allow 3 cats or make an exception. There was one place that I toured, trying to get the keys to tour this place was a bit of a headache. But there was one place that I toured yesterday that they said if one of the cats was a certified service animal, they could make an exception. Otherwise, I would have to talk to management because they usually don't allow multiple cats inside of an apartment. I'm willing to try to ask, but I don't know. There was one place that I was like, oh, this is really nice, but they were very strict about the 2-cat limit. And then there are some places that just don't allow pets at all, and those ones I don't even consider. I'm thankful that the app that I use, Zumper, actually has like criteria that it helps to filter apartment listings with. Like I right now have it filtered to find me 2-bedroom apartments where it's okay to have cats within a certain price range. And there's a surprising amount of results on the west and southwest side, and sometimes even on the north side. But the north side of Columbus runs more expensive because that's where all the money is. Pro tip for anybody looking to move to Columbus, Ohio, unless you've got a lot of money, don't move to the north side of Columbus, particularly around Polaris or Victorian Village. Those are the most expensive spots. Also, unless you are a university student, don't move near OSU because sports riots are very much a thing. And I just know that because I have family that live in Columbus, and I've visited a few times, and I know what neighborhoods to avoid. Yeah. There are a couple of places, apartment-wise, that will even allow exotic animals. Because that's another thing that I've noticed is that there are a lot of apartments that will say no exotic pets allowed, and that can include anything that is not a cat or a dog. So even a hamster would count. That's something that my one cousin came across because she's in college, but she has a pet hamster, and there were a lot of places that were like, we're not going to rent to you. We don't allow hamsters. Yeah, apartment hunting is, oh my God. I am not a fan of apartment hunting. Like, kudos to people who can find a place in 30 days. I'm not sure that I'm one of them. Lord. I'm just kind of tired of the search, so I want to take a break from it for at least a couple of weeks before I try actively searching again. But when I make my visit my friend up in the Toledo area this upcoming weekend, I'm going to be touring an apartment complex or two. I already booked a couple of viewings, and I'm starting to regret that decision. I hear a cat.
Scarlett.
She does this sometimes. She'll go into another part of the house and meow like she's lost. Ohio, at this time of year where you start to have the sunset at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Hamsters stay in a cage most of their lives and don't pee on things. They should be the preferred pet. I agree. Hamsters, all things considered, are not difficult pets.
I heard a meow. I heard a meow by my feet. Where'd you go? There you are. Yes, I know.
She's contemplating it.
in my lap.
Maybe she doesn't. I do agree, though. Hamsters realistically should be the preferred pet when it comes to landlords because, like, they live in a cage. And if they do get outside of their cage, they're usually in a hamster ball. So they're not peeing on anything and they're not destroying anything. So realistically, but landlords are not logical. And I say this as the granddaughter of a landlord and also as the daughter of a landlord because one of my parents also does landlording and oh my God, there's like no sense of rhyme or reason for these landlords. I'm going to not tangent too much about it though. I just realized how long we have been streaming, which has been almost 3 hours now. Thank you so much for sticking around for nearly 3 hours. Holy banana pants. And I didn't even really get to work on the Legend of Jamie Roberts. We were just sitting around and chatting and folding up mini comics and also having lunch. Totally biased opinion, but the Portland, Oregon area is amazing. I love the area I live in and never want to leave. Truth be told, part of the reason I even moved to Phoenix was because my original objective was to just kind of like place hop until I got to the East Coast, particularly to Portland or Seattle or someplace in California, and it just never worked out that way. It's been fun. Really need to learn more about how things work. Oh, I'm always happy to talk trade. So like any kind of questions that you have about it, I will talk for days about it. Like I love sharing information and trying to be genuinely helpful to people. Like anything that I know that could potentially help people, I like to share it. That said, I'm going to try to keep this as non-ranty and tangenty as possible. Speaking of looking for advice, particularly for like comic convention stuff,
Scarlett!
The punchline is be cautious about, God, what's his name? His name's Tyler. He runs Comics Launch. I would be weary of Comics Launch, particularly the podcast. I actually kind of made the mistake. I say kind of because there were some bits of information that were helpful, but I spent like $200 on a program that Tyler of Comics Launch made. The module was called Beyond Kickstarter, Leveraging Your Success onto Other Platforms or Other Outlets. And basically talking about how to make money with an online store, through Patreon, through conventions, and like one or two other outlets. The thing is, though, is that in that module, he said a lot of stuff that I already knew. There were maybe one or two nuggets of information that I did not have before that I was like, that's a neat idea. I'll give it a try. But then there was a lot of advice that he was giving that I was like, oh, this doesn't work. Particularly when he talked about how to pitch your ideas at people at conventions. I really disagree with his advice on that, because his advice is basically to be like, oh, this comic is a lot like existing property, but with quality. So, for example, and he actually structured it like this, like a formula. So like an example that he gave was, oh, it's like Superman, but with zombies in it. That's one example of a pitch that he gave. And I'm like, oh no, I do not like this idea at all. Largely because I try to treat the customer with respect, in that not everybody is familiar with particular properties. Like, I know nothing of Game of Thrones. So if you try to pitch a thing at me like, oh, this is like Game of Thrones, but blank, I'm not going to care because I am not invested in Game of Thrones. And there are a lot of people out there who are like that, where if you try to pitch something as, oh, it's like bleh, but with this quality to it, maybe they don't like bleh. So they may try to find something else. What I would rather do is come up with like a one line, not necessarily a summation, but a one line description that fits the story that you're trying to sell to people. Like, and it can take a while to hone this kind of a thing, but it took me a while to figure out how to hone pitching to Charlie and Clow, or pitching Charlie and Clow, for example. Like, it took me a while to get to a point where I was like, oh, Charlie and Clow is about a punk college student and a guardian angel protecting their city streets from monsters. Before I drew the pitch out a little bit, and I managed to now get it to a point where it can be succinct like that. Johnson and Sir, I just pitch it as, it's about two elf cops in Fantasyville and the magical malarkey they must manage. Because that's really the best summation of the story. I'm not going to try to say, oh, it's like Ren and Stimpy, but with elves. Like, that's too simplistic. Also, not accurate to the book. Like, Johnson and Sir is not like Ren and Stimpy. So I can't say to people, oh, it's like this property, but with this. Also, I feel like if you're trying to pitch it like that, and then it turns out that the thing that you are pitching is not like that thing at all, that sets up a false expectation with the customer, and that's shady as hell. And I don't like that. I would rather be honest, and I would rather say a one line, not necessarily a zinger, but like a one line pitch of the story. Like, for example, The Legend of Jamie Roberts is about a genderqueer pirate and their two best friends treasure hunting in a land full of dragons. That's the story. And trying to say, oh, it's like this, but with queer characters, doesn't do the story justice, because there's more to it than that. Also, there's something to be said about not just the false expectation, but if it is like property but with X, that's really, really derivative. Look up elevator pitch, same idea. Yep, elevator pitches. I'm very familiar with elevator pitches. We talked about those a lot in the Marketing 101 class that I had for my arts management minor, which arts management is business, but for arts people.
Scarlett? Scarlett, where are you?
She's probably in the kitchen. She likes to sit in the corner and hear herself meow.
Were you in the kitchen? Were you in the kitchen?
Yeah, I would rather do elevator pitches with regards to pitching a story. I don't like to say it's like property, but with X. Not just because it's derivative, but also because, and not just because it sets up false expectations either, but it could also be that if you're really derivative, if it is like blah property, but with X, it's very derivative. And the argument of originality in art is long and storied, and people will not shut up about it. But here's what Scott McCloud said that I feel is relevant to how to pitch your stuff. Just because you chose to sell out doesn't mean that anyone's going to buy. Likewise, just because you base your property very heavily on an already existing media or already existing property does not mean that fans of that property are going to buy your stuff. But I could talk about this subject for days, and we've been streaming for 3 freaking hours. I'm going to stop it there before I get into any more tangents. And also, this cat, she keeps demanding, and I need to know what she's demanding. So, you know, I'm going to finish up my bites of food. I'm going to check on this cat. And I will rant about feedback and how to be helpful and things that will help you sell your stuff at comic conventions another day. Not next week. There's not going to be a stream next week. If all goes well, you know, I'm going to check my calendar and see if I have anything happening December 14th. That's the next available Saturday. Oh, okay. I forgot about that. You know what? Maybe we could do a live stream on a Wednesday. Because Wednesdays are another good day that I can do live streams. Because Saturday, December 14th, I have a prior engagement, so I won't be able to stream that day either. Next week, I'm out of town. But my Wednesdays, my next 2 Wednesdays are largely uncommitted. So we could do a live stream on Wednesday instead of Saturday. So real quick, though, what do you think about that idea? Because when I ran the poll on Patreon to see what days would be best for live streaming purposes, Wednesday was not super high on the vote, but it was an option. Good luck at the convention. I hope all goes well. I hope so too. I am not prepared. I mean, I have the mini comics prepared and I have some paintings, but like, there's just, oh my gosh, there's a lot. There's a lot that I wanted to add to the lineup, and it's just, oh, I'm not ready. I can watch on Wednesdays. Woo! Okay. So, okay. So Wednesday, maybe, well, I'm pretty much open anytime on Wednesdays. So what about Wednesday afternoons, like Wednesdays at 1? How does that sound? I say I am not prepared for Genghis Khan. If there is any one thing that I am good at, it is improv. I can improvise my way into anything. I can't do it on weekdays. I'm usually too exhausted in the evening and I can't watch during the day. That's fair. But I have discovered that the live streams, once they're done airing, they become just straight videos. So if that helps with the decision making any, so, you can still watch the stream on Saturday. It just won't be live. But keep an eye on Facebook, Instagram, and Tumblr for any announcements further about live streams. But I am leaning more towards doing a live stream Wednesday, December 4th at, I'm thinking 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock, Wednesday, December 4th. I'm thinking. I will put that in the calendar. I will schedule it through YouTube, and I'll make announcements. If I end up canceling, I'll make announcements about that as well. But it should work out. And at the very least, if you can't make it live, it will post as a video later on the weekend. So there is that as well. But the live stream, if it happens on Wednesday, I can work on The Legend of Jamie Roberts again. I can answer any questions, or I could talk about how Genghis Khan went. It's because Genghis Khan will have passed by then, and I can talk about the convention then. All right. I'm donezo's for real this time. So, tentatively, next live stream, Wednesday, December 4th at 1 o'clock Eastern time. And it will become a straight video after the live stream. Right around December 21st, we should resume live streaming on Saturdays again. It's just the next couple of weeks is going to be Wednesday live streams because weekends are just occupied by other stuff. All right. Sound good to everybody? Sure. I've done so much talking this live stream. I'm going to have a cup of tea when I'm done. I don't want to lose my voice the day before Comic-Con. Okay. I'm going to give it a couple more minutes. Oh. I'm still getting used to this streaming service thing. Infinite screens. All right. I was giving it a few seconds to account for lag, but if the current live stream agenda sounds good to you, we'll just call it there for tonight. All right, so tentatively, I will see y'all on Wednesday, December 4th at 1 p.m. EST, and then after that, the video will just be a video, not necessarily a live stream. Saturday live streams should resume December 21st, but the next couple of live streams are going to be December 4th and December 11th. If anything changes, I will announce it on social media and through my email newsletter. All right, that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Oh my God, it's been 3 hours. Jeez. Thank you so much for your support. Y'all are bonkers, but I love you for it. But that said, still, you are seriously awesome. Thank you so much for watching. I will catch you Wednesday.